Welcome back, everybody, to beesneez. I got a new episode with my dad. He's back, famous 100 view getter, and he has a whole podcast of his own. But I wanted to have him back on because he's had a lot of cool experiences about Japan or in Japan, and I thought it'd be cool to get him to talk about it because he's been there in the early, well, I guess mid 2000s and a couple other times after that. So, in this episode, he's going to talk about his experience in 2006. So, I'm not going to do too much talking. I'm going to let him take the stage. But without further ado, why don't you? Everyone already knows who you are, but introduce what you do for those who don't.
Sounds good. Have a podcast that's going to be reaching 3 years relatively soon, which has been like every other week, except for like 1 week where it was delayed, uh, on it. But it's Lost Without Japan. And if you're listening on my podcast to the audio only of this, you can look in the show notes and you'll find the link to Sam's YouTube, and you can watch us as opposed to just listening to us as well.
Yes.
So
And vice versa on my channel. If you're watching this, his links will be in the description. So look at that. Teamwork.
teamwork, make the dream work. Get all those sponsors coming in. Today's show is
That's
brought to
right.
you by
Riverside,
It's Riverside. Sure, sure. Take all
sponsored.
this sponsored. It's definitely sponsored. Should throw that out there right now. All the
That's
money
right.
that's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
spent.
Oh
But
man.
yeah, yeah. I when I went to Fulbright, I was one of the last groups to get to go, because it's not, if you say Fulbright, a lot of people will think Fulbright is its own thing, but this was actually like Japan Fulbright Memorial Fund, and it was just a program that was put in place for teachers. And it was two teachers from each state were selected to go. And when I went in 2006, they were actually celebrating like a 10-year anniversary for it. And unfortunately, I only think it went for like maybe two or possibly 3 more years after that. Please don't blame me for the fact that it ended. But
It had to
um,
be you. They were like, we can't let this happen again.
can't let this happen. But I have still the envelope and my acceptance letter from Fulbright, because it meant like the world to me back then.
Hmm.
Because I had tried out or applied, I should say, 3 different times. And the first 2 times I received rejection letters. And if it wasn't for your mom saying, hey, you need to apply like a third time, I don't know that I would have. Because, you put all the like application and stuff, all the different proposals and stuff you had to do took a long time. Like it really took a long time. But I was able to get some nice letters of recommendation, and I really went even more all out to get that. And back in 2006, when I went, it was November, and to set some time, frames for this, the first iPhone 1, not like 10, 15, whatever it is, the first iPhone came out in June 2007. So this is like pre-smartphone. I used paper maps, travel guides, books to do my research, and I still have a lot of those today. Like one of the ones I was showing you earlier was just like, "Hey, here's 25 things to do in Tokyo." This is
That's a
like from
video. That's a video
uh,
waiting to happen.
yeah, it's like this is from like 2006. So how much of this is still, something that you want to do in Tokyo? I don't know. And then because of no Google Maps, I had to pull out the old, actual Frommers like travel maps for like Japan. I had one for Tokyo. I had one for Kyoto, and my one for you know Tokyo and Kyoto. When I was looking at all these books, I would actually go to bookstores and just look at the different guidebooks and buy some of them, you know. But I'd mark on the map like my places that I wanted to go, and I even like printed things out, because at the time it's not like I could just search up like what's around me. If you didn't know ahead of time, it was kind of just like this big long like exploration, which is cool and it's a great way to
Mm,
do things. But it, it's so much nicer now. But like we ended up flying out in early November, and what was nice was like you and I were in Chicago, and flying to Japan, direct is not a great experience. Uh, you know, it, it is what it is. But my first time actually to Japan, we first ended up getting flown to San Francisco, and that's where like people really got to meet each other for the first time. And we had 100 teachers, so like two teachers from every state were selected. They got to meet for the first time. We actually got to go to the Japanese consulate general's residence there in San Francisco for like an event, some food, listening to him speak, getting to meet some other members, like including like some people from my travel group. When I went ended up going to Komaki, and that was like early November, and that ended up being super nice because the flight from San Francisco to Japan was like closer to 10 hours, and
that's a big improvement.
it really is. And one of the nice things was is like the following day, like we ended up flying out for United, and we were split up into 20 people groups. So there were 10 groups of people that went to like different parts of Japan later on, but we all together to begin with. But what was really cool is they booked our flights, and it was the people that were a part of that 20-person group actually flew together. So we got a chance to actually get to know each other a little bit even before we got to Japan. And it was funny. We're all like sharing things. And I remember people, we had like some music to listen to, but everybody had like books that you're trying to cram like that last minute Japanese in before you make your flight, which really doesn't work. But that's what we were all trying to do, And it was it was nice. Like, but one thing I think is also different is back in like 2006 when I flew, this is almost 20 years ago now, but like you were able to stand on the plane. So like in different areas where, like around the restrooms or off to the side, you could actually stretch and stand for a while. And I remember for large chunks of the trip, we just stood. And it was really nice not to be like confined to your seat
Yeah,
the whole trip, I borrowed Bapa's noise canceling Bose headphones for the flight, which came in clutch,
nice.
and they made me like, never fly again without my own pair of noise canceling,
Mhm,
headphones. But it was so cool because you're surrounded by um, all these people that are into Japan and at least have some sort of interest in it. They're excited going. You're all going together. And for pretty much everybody that was on that trip, it was their first time of going. So, like,
mhm.
Sam, it's like just imagine being on a plane that's filled full of people that are as excited as you and I are, to go. And it
Oh,
was
yeah.
just like, it was amazing. It was definitely amazing. And once we ended up landing in, we were told you're landing in Narita or Tokyo, and not realizing that Narita was not Tokyo at the time. We ended up arriving like around 3:35, and although like on my show and like when we traveled and stuff, I don't have like a huge love of like guided tours or someone being in charge of like my trip.
Mhm.
It was actually like a wonderful first experience, especially being, like I said, there's no iPhone, there's no
Yeah.
smartphone, there's no Google Maps. Um,
It's no Instagram
y-
reels being like, "These are the top 5 things to do in blah, blah,
it's
blah."
just not at all, not at all.
No, no.
So,
No
and
abroad
I
in
didn't,
Japan? What kind of world are we living in?
I don't know. And it was great because I also didn't have to worry about anything. Like this was all expense paid, and I didn't say that earlier, but they spent between like 20 and $30,000 on every teacher that came, and it was crazy that they went so far to do that, just to have like they wanted to build this understanding and like relationship between our two countries, and just have teachers go back and share about Japan. And I thought, like, I'm like, so awesome they're doing this. But
Yeah.
they chartered a private bus for our group. So we get into Narita, and all of us are sitting around because there was actually multiple flights, of course, coming into Japan. My flight was the first one that went out, and the second flight was actually behind us. Like it was like a good like
Mm.
45 minutes or an hour behind. So we get our bags and things, and we come across like our first, my first ever experience with a Japanese vending machine, and it was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily, I had ordered money ahead of time, so like the people, those of us that actually brought money with us and didn't get it, after the fact,
Oh, yeah.
like we're at this vending machine, and I bought my first drink, and I still have a picture of me with it. This like Asahi like bottle, small. I was introduced to Japanese sized water, or Japanese sizes to begin with.
Yeah, at least you didn't get the Jello drink. Not
Oh,
you dodged that bullet the first time.
that might have ruined me. I'd have just flown back home if that was
Yeah.
how am I
You would have
supposed to
never
drink this?
talked about Japan after that. We would never have gone. Anime banned in the household.
That's right. Don't you dare speak of this.
You get, like, twitches every time someone brings it up.
It's like, how do you drink this? Nothing's coming out. You got to shake it. No, it's no good. No good. But yeah, like the funny part was, like all of us are there, and again, there's no Instagram, there's no like reels, there's no anything for people to see this. So this is like brand new to people. So like people took my water bottle and other people's drinks, and they were just passing them around the bus so that people could take like pictures of
Wow.
the things from the vending machines. And I'm sitting there like I've got hundreds of photos taking pictures of cars outside the bus window as we're starting to leave. Like, it's just like, everything that you could do
Yeah.
to like bring back as much as you could, and it was amazing. And my first hotel that they had me stay at in Japan was like not what I would experience later on in like future
Mm.
trips. But they had us check in at the Kyo Plaza Hotel, which is still in Shinjuku. And it's one of the nicer hotels in Tokyo. It's not like the Park Hyatt where you're spending like 500, $800 a night, but it's
Mhm.
still $300 a night. We ended up finally getting in like around 8, 10 at night, and we were placed in groups of 5, and we were like paired up with this guide, this guy, girl, somebody from Japan. They were going to be taking groups of 5 out for their first meal in Japan. You had to pay for it, but they were actually taking them
Mm.
out to get something to eat. And we were all exhausted. Like, but like, some of us, you're like, do you want to go to bed? You're like, no, I'm not going to pass up this opportunity to have a guide show me a restaurant in Tokyo that I'm not going to
Right.
be able to find on my own. And we followed our guide out into the city. And let me tell you, son, we had the only guide that gave this type of experience out of any group that was in my trip. I could tell, like, he's the type of person that's like, if you come into my country, I'm going to see if I can embarrass you. And that's what he went out of the way to do.
Oh,
And
yes.
he took us, like, and before this, like when we were in San Francisco before we flew out, we had like this little meeting of like, things to do in Japan, not to do. And one of the things they were very explicit about was don't go into any red light areas in Japan at all. If you get in trouble, at a minimum, we're going to send you back home.
Wow.
At the worst, we're going to have you pay back some of this money that was we spent on you to come. So I'm like, cool. you know, like wasn't on my radar anyways. Not gonna do it. Don't want to be
Yep.
sent home.
Got it.
And here's this guy who is taking us into not just a red light area, but the biggest red light area in all of
Wow.
Japan. He took us into Kabukicho,
Mhm.
and you know and so he was really trying to get like a reaction, showing us like the stores and things, or things that you can go to.
Oh, of
And all of
course.
us were kind of like, we're exhausted. So we're just
I
like,
can't imagine. like, hopping off a plane the day of and going to Kabukicho is, like, the wow, the most culture shock you can imagine.
But, like, luckily, like, the teachers and things that were there all seemed to have, like, pretty thick skin,
Mm,
and everybody was just kind of, I think, exhausted as well, so he didn't get the reaction he wanted to from us
sure.
because 'cause we're all like, "Whatever, man, like, are we gonna go eat?" You
Yeah,
know? And
right.
he ended up taking me to get my first, Japanese pork cutlet, and I still have
Mm,
pictures of that as well. I have
nice.
pictures of, like, so much from that trip, and it was great. And I have no doubt that this guy would have walked us around longer if we would have given a reaction of being in Kabukicho, and he would have
Sure.
just like done it longer. But he was still super nice. He answered a bunch of questions for us. He gave us some things to do, but it was just funny because once we got back, all of us wanted to call home and let people know back home that we had made it safe and that
Right.
we are okay. And again, I couldn't use a cell phone. Like, so all of us were crowded around in the Keo Plaza Hotel around their telephones that they had designated for international calls. So
Wow.
you had to buy like these phone cards to be able to call international. We're talking with people as we're waiting to get on the phone, and no one else at all got anywhere near Kabukicho. They're like, "Isn't that the place that we're not supposed to go?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes, that
Yep.
would be."
Yes, it is.
So, we it was just it was no, it was great, man. But like the following morning, like they ended up getting us into our smaller groups, and we learned a little bit about Tokyo, and we ended up going to the Japan's like Parliament building, the National Diet building, and we actually
Mm,
saw like the government in session,
wow.
doing stuff, whatever that stuff
Government
was.
things.
Yeah. And like we did that. It was cool, but like it's only cool for so long because
Yeah,
again, I don't understand anything that they were talking about when I was there.
right.
But what was cool is like when we went back that night, they had two different performers show up for us, and they did two different like traditional performances. The first guy ended up doing Kyogen, which is like a traditional comedic theater, and it's done with
Mm,
like a bunch of masks and stuff like that. And he was hilarious. Like
yeah,
it was just awesome. It was great. It was done
yeah.
in English, like and Japanese. And then the second gentleman, Mark Oshima, he ended up performing kabuki for us. And it was only like years and years later that I found out this guy was actually like, he's a researcher, he's written books, like, he's a pretty well known
Wow,
person.
that's
So,
cool.
like, cool that we actually got to
Yeah.
have him. And like, kabuki can be like super, super boring if you don't know Japanese. It's a longer thing, so having just these short performances, and he just did like different sections of like different shows that he'd done, and he would do it, and then he'd tell us what it was about, and it was like that was fantastic. If I was going to
Yeah.
do it, awesome. And son, I just want to let you know, after you're all done that night, dinner was on our own, and I'm sure you're going to be shocked to find out where I went because I was still struggling from the flight.
Mm.
And although a lot of people went out after 6 p.m. and hit like Tokyo and were like going out to explore and just riding trains to end up places, man, they gave us these maps, and it was, and I still have some of them. So like here's one. So
Oh my gosh.
this is convenience stores that are in Japan at that point in time with this like map.
Oh my
and
gosh.
and so that was the front was convenience stores. The
Yeah.
back are restaurants that you can go to. And if
Royal
you
Host
look right at the top, McDonald's, Subway, like it's
Subway.
Denny's. Like it was
What?
like it's just like stuff that's like we've got Americans coming. They're not going to like our food, so we better
Yeah.
give them some stuff.
Give him
And
the
then
Royal Host.
yeah, and then to help us get around, they actually gave us these maps. So like this is Akihabara, and it was like how to get there, what stations, what line,
Mm.
when to get off. So like they gave us those things. I had one for like Ginza had one
Wow.
for if you wanted to go to the Hard Rock Cafe at the time, which was in Ueno. And then
I I think I'd probably die if I didn't have my phone on me to navigate these trains. That's insane.
and then like here's a map of Shinjuku. And it's just like
Wow.
so it's just like all these different things that they had, and I was using my map. They gave us this like really fancy tourist map of Tokyo, but
Nice.
like literally it was hop on a train and hope you made your way like back home, you know to where you're going. So I have all these pictures of from my camera when I would take a picture of the sign for the station that I got off at or got on at, so I
Yeah.
knew where to go back to. But yeah, I had McDonald's. I know you're shocked. It was the first time I came
I
back.
mean, traditional Japanese cuisine.
I did it all. I did it
Yeah.
all, and it was like I went back and passed out, and like the following day, I ended up kind of regretting not going,
Mhm.
because I didn't realize that the following day was going to be like this huge thing, an entire day filled for things. And it began with all these like boards of education that we were introduced to, where we learned about like the Japanese school system, the
Hmm.
Japanese government, the economy,
Wow.
and it ran the entire day. And they gave us these ear headphone things so that you could actually listen to somebody translating in English everything that
Oh.
they were saying.
Hmm.
So that was cool. And that night, we ended up having a reception dinner to celebrate the 10th anniversary of JFMF, and that ran till like about 8:30 at night. And like I ended up running to a convenience store with a bunch of people I made friends with, and we began this game that we did the entire trip, which was go to the convenience store, pick a drink, and pick some snacks. And we
Nice.
had no idea like what was it the snacks were. You're just going off like the pictures of what it was and hoping that you brought something back that was good. And we'd bring back alcohol and different types of things to drink, and it was a blast. We'd go back to our rooms and start opening up all these different snacks and share them with each other. And the majority of them I didn't like. We didn't like, but like over time we began to find things that we liked. And one of the things that we found are the green tea Kit Kats that are still around today, still a family favorite, still a favorite of
Oh,
so
yeah.
many different people. But when we came across that actually resulted in people that we shared them with sharing them with other people who began to share them with other people, and we cleared out the entire area for a significant distance of any green tea Kit Kats. Like there were literally almost 100 people that were just going around trying to find these things to either bring back home or just have as snacks, and they became like the like easy favorite of the whole trip. And I just like I kind of like I like to think like there's this guy or girl, like somebody in Tokyo who's in charge of sales of Kit Kat. And like back in November of 2006, like just for no explainable reason, this huge rush in specific green tea Kit Kats just being cleared out of Tokyo.
Damn
And
gaijins. Damn
they're just
gaijins.
like, what's going on? It's like, but yeah, like we ended up ending our day afterwards. We ended up going the following day where we learned about like women's status in Japan, which is still
Mm.
kind of is definitely a work in progress to
Yeah.
today. We learned about the special education um, in Japan at that time, and we really just learned about like different subjects like math, science, and social studies, like how they were taught in Japan.
Mm.
And this led to like me actually getting to go to Tokyo Station for the first time and boarding my first Shinkansen, which was a Kadoma 569. And we were taken out to like split up. All of our groups were split up into our groups of 20. And I went out to Aichi Prefecture and
Mm.
got to stay at my first non like 4-star, hotel. I had to step down there.
Wow.
you know, and my first business hotel, which I looked up, it's closed. I was like, oh, it'd be cool if it's still open or something. I wouldn't go back, but like it'd just be cool that it was still open. um, but it was like we ended up checking in and like that again, like you're tired, you get back. We went to Aichi Educational University on our first day. And it was one of those things where prior to that, we found out that somebody from our group had to give a speech when we got to the city we were going to be at, Komaki, and everyone's like, "Mike can do it." I'm like, "Thanks, guys." You know. So like that on the train while everyone else is watching things come by and like getting the most of their trip, I'm sitting there trying to write something for the following
Oh,
day, and luckily I ran into a couple on the Shinkansen that asked, of course, where all of us were going. And I had said Komaki, and they told me that they actually had lived there prior and that they live in Tokyo now due to work. But they'd return, like, probably to live once they retired. And they just spoke, like, really highly of the area. And so when I gave my speech rather than like what I had written down. I kind of like the thing that came to my forefront was like, they're not going to care about like most of what I had written, but I shared that experience of this couple saying that their favorite place and where they ended up wanting to live was Komaki. It wasn't Kyoto, it wasn't Tokyo, it wasn't Osaka. It's not these big name places, that their favorite place, the place that they loved the most, was the city of Komaki. And it's just an industrial town. Like, there's not, one of those things where you're like, hey, this is going to be like, you have to go here. I did
mhm.
an episode on going back to Komaki, like to the mall that I went to and things like that. But it's not like it's going to be like, on your list of stuff to go. But the news, when I walked into this, we thought this was going to be a small group of people. And it turned out to be this whole floor that was filled full of reporters and local people from the area
Oh
and
my
their
gosh.
friends and like all this stuff. It was packed. And at
Whoa.
the end of it, they're like, "Hey, do you have a copy of your speech? We're going to be posting it on the local paper, like local newspapers." And I'm like, "Hey, it's not the speech I gave." And they're like, "It doesn't matter." We just had so so it was like cool. And I tried to like find a copy of it before I left, or like try to get something. And I gave them my
Mm.
information. I was like, "Hey, please send me a copy." Like, we will, we will. It never came.
Uh,
But I can't hold it against anything. They're like, yeah, whatever, man. So yeah, we did that. Like, in the following day, I ended up, like, it was one of my favorite days of the trip because we ended up in Komaki City, like it was like Hikari Gakko Elementary School. And I got to tell you, son, like, I felt like a rock star from the moment we got there. Like, kids were waving to us, everyone's saying hi, huge smiles, and the entire school put on this like huge assembly for us, where they had an entire grade level perform a dance for us. And like,
wow.
we're up on the stage, like, sitting in these chairs like rock stars, and like the music starts and everybody just freezes together, and all of us, you can hear from like the audio, is like we all are just laughing because like it's amazing, and we're just like, what's
Yeah.
going on? They did this huge thing. We were able to go around and actually get to sit with other classrooms, teachers,
Oh,
observe what
cool.
they're doing. And then at the we saw the kids serve lunch. So like when I
Mm.
was there, they were the ones that went to go get the food. They're the ones that actually serve like everyone in the class and then
Wow.
bring it back. And at the end, we saw them clean that entire school, son. They cleaned classrooms, hallways, bathrooms, the school grounds. They picked up everything. And we were told, we're like, come on, like, how do you get a kid to clean the bathroom? Like this, this can't be the top of their list,
Yeah.
and they're like, no, no, it's actually was like a huge honor for a student to get picked to clean the bathroom. So,
Wow. The
you know,
perfect days, equivalent, elementary
it's
school equivalent of perfect days.
it really is. It really is. And it's like, we were there and it was great. And that day we ended up finding a mall near the hotel we were spending at. In our routine after the day of like going around to these schools, quickly became going to the food court, getting ice cream filled crepes, and then after we ate them, going up to the third floor, top floor, fourth floor, and they had these at the time super high tech massage chairs, and we would just like be the guy jeans that are up at the top of this, just sitting in massage chairs at the end of the day, looking out kind of at the stuff, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It was so great. Uh, Following day, we ended up going to a junior high. It's Komaki City Toru Junior High School,
Mm.
and we got to see some students perform taiko drums, and we got to join in
Oh,
our
cool.
like we got to join in ourselves. I was like, cool, you
Yeah.
know. And then really over the next 5 days, we went to a bunch of different schools. We got to make our own jewelry. I got to watch robot battles, and like my biggest takeaway the whole time was that like kids smile the same like all over the world.
Mm.
So it was, you know what I mean, like it was no big it just really showed me that we had more connection than I thought like we would before.
Yeah.
And my group, like I said, we're doing our convenience snack runs, but we stopped getting alcohol or drinks in the convenience stores because our hotel we were at, it had beer vending machines on every floor. So we cleared out our beer vending machine, and then in the nights we were there, we ended up clearing out every single floor that was in this place, so that it was just like completely empty. It was just so much fun. I ended up going to have a homestay with the Takasu family that was in Komaki, and I got to meet their son and daughter. They asked me to play cards, and then we played catch till it was way too dark to see the ball. They ended up getting me out to this museum called the Meiji Mura Museum, and it's all the buildings are
Mm.
like real buildings from like the Meiji era, and they're not recreations. And one of them was a Frank Lloyd Wright building. There was like a hotel from Tokyo.
Hmm.
Um, Saw a train from that time, and I had one of my favorite meals from the trip, which was at that point anything that reminded me of home, which was 8 small chicken wings, and I mean like small chicken wings, but they, they were divine. They were divine, and I we ended up leaving that time, and I got to before we went back, we got to kind of celebrate a belated Thanksgiving, and we went to my first ryokan, and our group of 20 was there, and we were coming down, and in the with the yukata they told us just to wear like our undergarments. So here we are coming down in this yukata with like boxers, yukata with like just what you have underneath, and everybody rightfully so was super self-conscious at the start of this like meal. And it had like so many different courses. It was one of the most elaborate meals that I've ever had. And I was trading people my fish for more rice. And I was eating, my beef bowls and stuff, but they were bringing out alcohol for us. And we were just asking because we were doing karaoke afterwards too. And our like babysitter that they had assigned to us were like, hey, when do we know to stop drinking? Like, what's our cutoff? And and we were just doing it at first because like we didn't want to have like charges that weren't meant to happen. We're just being like good people, like, hey, I don't want you
Mhm.
to have to pay for something you're not planning to. But she made the mistake of telling us that no one had ever come close to reaching the budget that they had for alcohol, so not to worry about it. And if by some chance we got close, she'd let us know. Well, we took that as a challenge. And we won. We won. She finally came out as we're singing karaoke, and she's like, listen, if you continue drinking past this point, you're gonna have to pay for it yourselves. And all of us let out this like huge cheer. And like ended up calling it a night at that point because we're all like we were all so gone, son. I'm like, there were these huge beers there bringing out like champagne sized like beers.
Yeah.
It was like so much fun, and like just such a good time. After that, they ended up taking us back to Tokyo, and what had happened was the previous group to us they had told us coming that we were going to get this weekend, like 2 days to do what you wanted to do, like 2 days, 2 nights, or
Mm.
2 days, 3 nights, something like you're going to get these 3 days, 2 days, full days to do something on your own and explore Japan. But somebody in the previous group went to China. They didn't stay in Japan where they were paid. They didn't like go see other things, to come back. They went to go see the
What the
Great Wall.
heck?
And after seeing the Great Wall, they didn't make it back in time.
Shocker.
So, it just amazes me that, like, they spent so much money on it that you would do that. So we were given 1 day and 2 nights to,
Oh,
like, get out. But I, like, me and a couple other people decided to go to Kyoto, and that was my first time. And son, like, your dad, I did all the research I could possibly do. I found the location for, like, Scarlett Johansson when she went to go visit,
heck
in
yeah.
Kyoto, walked across those circle paths. I had this on my map of Kyoto, and I was so stoked. I'm like, man, I'm going to make the most of this day. We're getting in there. And when we pull into the town, it is late, it is dark. And my first impression of Kyoto was so underwhelming. It looked
Uh,
dirty, it looked old, it looked like a city, and I'm like, "What did I do? I messed up. I had 1 day in Japan to do something, and I
mhm.
chose this place."
Yeah.
Like, luckily we went to bed though, like, the following day, and we went out. I'm like, "Cool. Hey, there's nature, there's a lot of beauty." Just where we were was not. And we ended up going through, and we ended up going to Q Museum first.
Mm.
And because at the time it was in competition for, like, a World Heritage site that it's since gotten, and all the leaves were changing.
Oh,
It was
man.
like everywhere you could see, like, every color. And I became like the super popular person of these different groups that ended up in Kyoto because I had the map. Like, I had the guide. They're like, hey, we're just going to follow you and go see some things and then come back. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Well, while we're there, we're trying to take pictures of each other. And this guy comes up to me from the trip that I had not met before. And he's like, hey, can I have a look at your map? And I'd gotten this, like, weird vibe from him. Like, as soon as
Mm.
he was even talking to me, I'm like, something's off. And I was like, cool, man, you can look at my map, but, like, don't take it away. Like, when you're done looking at it, like, don't walk away with it, don't take it away, just, like, give it back to me. I've spent a lot of time, like, doing research and trying to find some places to go to. And he's like, oh yeah, no worries. And in between me getting pictures of me being there, the dude just walks off with the map. Like, walked off with the map.
Oh.
And, like, the couple of people that were with me were like, well, what are we going to do? Nothing, can't find this person. So instead of heading off to do all this cool stuff, it was still cool. We had to stick in the area because, again, I didn't know if we walked in this direction, what would be it, where.
Right.
So we ended up walking down the street for Kimi Zadera. There's, like, a whole pottery street, and there was, like, pottery for like $100, $80, $200, $300. I wish I would have bought, like, a cup from back then to bring back home.
Mhm.
um, we ended up running back into the guy at the end of the day, when we were getting on the Shinkansen to head back. And he had, like, not an apology, not anything. And I was like, dude, I'll take my map back. And he's like, why do you want it back? He goes, and I've also written, like, my own notes on this. And I was like, it's not yours to begin with, man.
What the
So, so,
heck?
so I was like, I'll appreciate your map, your notes when I come back next time, but I'm taking my map. and so I got it back from him, and he was just looking at me like I was, just this, just I didn't get it. I was like, it was just so funny,
Wow.
son. And we're coming up here for all of you that made this part. I appreciate you listening to me here. So we're close to our end here, but um, after that, we ended up going back to, like, Tokyo, and one of, like, my most memorable times was I got to listen to a survivor of the bombing on Hiroshima, and I still have the VHS of it, and it's in our, like, crawl space. I need to get it on DVD before it goes completely bad if it hasn't already. I was able to record some video and audio on my own, but my camera at the time does not have what a lot of people have today, which is that image stabilization, and it just looks like I'm going like this with the camera the whole time. It was awesome. Um, but the video was no good, but the audio is great. So I'm gonna have to post that at some point because it's like 10 minutes of him talking about what happened right after the bombing
Mm.
and like what his immediate reaction was for his family and other things. And I was like, man, you we asked him, we're like, do you hold like do you hate the US? I mean, do you hold ill
Yeah.
will towards us? I'm like, rightfully you should. Like,
Mhm.
but he said no. And he's like, I do this so that it doesn't happen again. And like it was huge. Like it was so impactful.
Yeah.
We had a couple nights left, and that was when I finally made it to one location from Lost in Translation, which was the New York bar at the Tokyo Park Hyatt. I
Nice.
went with a group of people. I sat where I thought Bill Murray sat and I had this picture taken of me using my camera for like, me sitting where I thought he was. The picture didn't turn out. I didn't realize till later. And that began like this running gag of me never getting my picture taken at the New York bar. Um, but we had like some great drinks. I saw Tokyo, at night from an amazing view. We got
Mhm.
to hang out. We got to see some things. And after doing that, like that, one of the things that I did before I came home, I came back home with some gifts for you. I got from a mall that was in Tokyo, and like to this day, like one of my favorite things, and I'll tell people like if you go to Japan, go to an Aeon mall. It sounds stupid, like you're going to go halfway around the world, you're going to go to a mall, but like you get to see like families being families and kids
Mhm.
being kids, and like people interacting without like that front that they normally have. And it was just one of my favorite things. I ended up doing shopping, saw some people that I was missing, like you at that point in time, missing like my family. I'm like, man, like, it's been a long time since I've gone. So getting to see them was just like this huge thing.
Mm.
And we packed up, we get ready to go, we go back to Narita, after kind of doing our like presentations of what everybody did at different places. One group ended up in Hiroshima, kind of jealous of them to this day, but like all different places. One was out near Fukuoka. So like that would have been cool too, but it was like more rural places. We ended up back in Narita. We're getting ready to go. And what do I think about Sun? I think about those green tea Kit Kats. So I go to like a store that's near us, and I'm like, "Hey, are they here?" And sure enough, they are. So I came back with like a few bags, and I showed the people that I was with, and like they're like, "Poof, gone." They're like, "Where was it?" I'm like,
Wow.
"Oh, they're at the stores," and they're like, "Watch our luggage," and they took off. And and then like other people that had not caught like that never came in contact with,
Yeah.
that didn't get the green tea Kit Kat stuff, they're like, what's going on? And I'm like, these green tea Kit Kats, they're amazing. Like, where'd you
Yeah.
see them? The store. Son, our group of 100 cleared out, I have no doubt, Narita, of green tea Kit Kat. So we have this like Tokyo thing in early November that's like, where it's cleared out, real quick. And then we have Narita on this specific day that's been cleared out of them too. You know, it's just, it's great, and at the end of the day, like, I couldn't have been more thankful for like my time there.
Mm.
Um, and all they asked was us to share. And I'd like to think that like I've had students reach back out to me that have gotten like Japanese minors, or taken Japanese, or are wanting to go to Japan. So between like my podcast and like all the kids that I've had over time, I'd like to
Yeah.
think that they've gotten their money's worth.
Oh, they're getting their money's worth from me alone. Yeah,
So like,
yeah.
it's like
They did well.
yeah, it's like they're one of us. But yeah, like I know you always show off music and CDs.
Mm.
So I still have my CDs that I bought back in 2006 on my first trip to Japan. I ended up having one that's by Bonnie Pink, and it was like a 2 disc set. It's not on like any streaming service that I can see, but it
Mm.
does have the song um, Heaven's Kitchen, which is like that's the only part of the song that's in English, but it's great. I have Kazuya Yoshi, like, he had his album that he
That's a
actually
great
record.
cover.
Yeah, and he recorded in California. This like album, and it came back. He has other albums that are since then. It's like amazing. I lucked out with a lot of what I had, and then I have my first Bump of Chicken album. And I like that's the band that you and I like together. I've not
Mm,
seen this one again. Same thing. Haven't found it on streaming sites and stuff like that. And it was just like those albums were like when I came back when I was missing the fact that I was there and stuff. I'd listen to those, and it was just like such a good time,
mm,
son. Such a good time. But it was like, yeah, I would recommend to anybody if you can find anything remotely like this because they still do they had done prior to COVID like a junior high teachers or high school
mm,
teachers, equivalent. But if you are watching this and you have the opportunity, like take it, go. It
mhm.
was amazing. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. That was awesome.
I appreciate you having me on again, son. It was fun just like going back through all my notes and
Yeah.
they had like this book that they gave us, and this book was just filled full of like all of our contacts. It had maps of the area. It was our itinerary for like every single day, like
Oh,
of what we
cool.
were gonna do,
Yeah.
who we were with and stuff. And it's just like
That's
um,
awesome.
it was so much fun, like remembering things that I'd done back
Yeah.
then. So
That's
thank you, son.
awesome. Yeah, I've been kind of struggling to come up with video ideas, and I mentioned offhand to you about how I think it'd be cool for you to talk about your Japan trips. I thought we'd just shoot the crap, and then I come home from work last night, and you're working on it until 1:30 in the morning. I'm like, oh my gosh! So
Yes.
I again, thank you very much.
It was 6 hours that I did because I love you, son. That was
Yep, yep. Yeah, it was only a matter of time before I went to Japan because of you. So
and I'm super happy for you to have that opportunity that you're going to have coming up, and the time that's going to be there, and that like how much you and Addison have done for like Japanese and how you guys tease each other in Japanese back and forth, which is amazing.
Mhm.
And how you're both taking your own classes, and you're going to take now everything that you had and have a month and a half to like put it to use. And I can only
Right.
imagine it's going to like make things even more concrete and give you like even more motivation coming back. So just super
Yeah.
jealous.
Yeah, it'll be very cool, and I take all of our experiences together in Japan and all the experiences growing up and you exposing me to Japanese culture and media and just fortifying my love. So, uh, thank you so much for being on, and I love you.
Love you, son, and sorry that you have to edit this. So
Hey, I'm gonna have to edit a lot less. It's different for me because I'm like, but I think you did a good job going through, so I think it's gonna be a easier editing experience.
well, thanks again, son. Look forward to talking about being back on again, and
Oh
I'd
yeah,
love to talk about like any return trip or anything later on. So, and we'll have to have you
absolutely.
back on to even promote your show a little bit better on mine. If you haven't, Sam's been on our like my podcast a couple different times. So, yeah, I said we
I'm the
got lots
recurring
of content.
character
All the cool kids, only
Yeah,
only the cool guys get to come back. So,
for sure.
but no, son, thank you. Don't want to drag it out anymore. It's
Of
already 50
course.
minutes for you.
Hey, it's the longest video. I'll take it.
Hopefully, it gets all the views, son. All the
Oh
views.
yeah, all the views.
Well, bye, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Bye.